All right, calm down. It's not my last show. I'm just trying to prove a point. I could say that. I could say whatever I want. It would be well within my rights to say that. But would it be smart? No, there would be consequences. My bosses would either celebrate or lose their minds. See, I know that. So why doesn't everyone else know that? Yesterday, we showed an Instagram post made by a teacher calling a student a cheater and a liar. Not the smartest move, if you ask me, and seems our viewers agree. We got this from viewer Sherry. She has taken social media to its worst level. Couldn't she have found a better way to vent? Like maybe the ladies' room in the toilet, because that's where she belongs. Gary wrote, "It is very hard to recruit teachers, so I am not convinced the teacher needs to be fired, but certainly needs to be disciplined." And this, wrong, 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 wrong. What goes on in the classroom or bus or any part of school property is covered by school district privacy policies. It's a great point. What are the privacy policies, and how does school policy affect something like this? Let's welcome in Elaine Torres from the Walter Clark Legal Group. Thanks for being here tonight. Welcome to the program.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's get into this, because there's a lot of confusion, and we had the story last night. We talked about it again tonight. What can and what can't you say online?
Well, that depends. In this specific context, when we're talking about an educator who is tied to the community, you are protected to a certain extent. So the FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, does protect student confidentiality. But when you get to the state level, the California Educational Code, and even the local districts have a higher duty or heightened duty on these educators to safeguard student privacy. So it really depends on the situation. But in a situation here where you're an educator and there's a close nexus between what you do and the comments you are making, particularly if you are identifying, even though you're not naming a student, it's very risky, and you do expose yourself to having some disciplinary action at the district level.
Okay, Elaine, and that's what I was thinking about, too. I found it very odd that a teacher would jump in here and basically, without naming the student, but still talking about one of their students. And once you've posted something like that, is it fair to say, now that's public, everybody sees it, you're not protected then, you yourself posted that?
That's correct. And in this case, this educator actually may have violated FERPA by talking about prior disciplinary actions that the student may have faced. She mentioned cheating, she mentioned very specific prior acts, and therefore it's not protected.
Okay, so what then would be the legal consequences if you cross those lines?
Well, that depends. For an educator here, it'd probably be at the district level, some disciplinary action within her own district. With regard at the federal level, I think that would be something that would have to be evaluated after the district does their own disciplinary review.
All right. So the thing we keep hearing about, and this, I think, is something you hear every day, especially when we're dealing with online stuff, the First Amendment. So the teacher could say, it is my First Amendment right to speak my mind. I have freedom of speech. Elaine, here's what I don't think people understand. You can say whatever you want, and you can say it whenever you want. No one is denying you that opportunity, but there are consequences. See, that's the thing that's left out of all of this. You can walk into a theater and scream fire if you want, but there's consequences. And I don't know if people understand that, or am I misunderstanding it?
No, that's correct. There are consequences. And in fact, here, First Amendment protections are limited in this context, right? This is an educator. There's a close nexus between what she is doing for work as an educator and the comments that she is making. So unless it's an issue of public concern, for example, had this educator said something like, students nowadays don't want to study, they don't want to do the work, well, that's a public concern. Maybe we have some internal issues with our education. However, she took it beyond that and made very specific statements regarding a student. So once you do that, you're outside of the bounds of what would essentially be protected as free speech.
All right. Good stuff. Elaine, thanks for coming on, and thanks for explaining this for us.
Thank you so much for your time.
So we did wonder